What's up, everybody? Normally I'd be doing a stream right now, but I decided to maybe dedicate some time to making some videos. I figured why not? I have to, or I don't have to, but I sit here and draw constantly. And this is going to be a little weird because I'm not going to be like editing out any mistakes. I'm just going to go ahead and talk, and then maybe if I do find a way to edit it, I'll cut out some silent moments that are less interesting. But for the most part, this is just supposed to be like a talk and draw, and if I can find a way to add music in the background, I will. Um, I do have a background in film and cameras and FTV and stuff like that, but I guess to kind of introduce myself, I am an artist from Florida. I have a lot of issues with saying the word artist because I don't consider myself an artist, but a lot of people do, and I've kind of warmed up to it over the last like 5 or 6 years. I've been drawing since I was 7 years old, and I've done some professional work, but for the most part, I've stayed out of professional work for pretty much. I never felt like I was good enough to do professional work, and now as things are getting crazy and weird, and we're kind of in this state of unrest and not really knowing what to do as far as work and everything like that goes, I figured why not. So I'm usually streaming about the entire time I'm drawing. I'm building a 100% portfolio now. I've never felt like I had the time or the ability to make my own portfolio, but I decided why not. I have real no education in art other than, high school classes and stuff like that. I think I'm getting a phone call, but I don't know where I put my phone. No, I wasn't. It was right next to me. But I'm just kind of dumb. Sorry about that. So normally, I'd be streaming and, I don't get a lot of views, and that's fine. I mostly do this now because I am doing it, and I figured why not. And I guess I'll talk about what I'm doing. A song by Harry Styles came on to my Spotify, and it sounds a lot like a song from the neighborhood. It's kind of weird. So yeah, I'll talk about this, and then we'll move on from all of that. This is something for a friend of mine who's starting out her business. She's doing tie dye and stuff like that. I'll leave, something about her business in the video somewhere. And yeah, I went to her house this weekend, and they asked me to make a like a logo for their business, and not outing myself, but I was not completely coherent, so I barely remember agreeing to it, but I was probably psyched about it because anytime people want to get me to do things, I'm like, yeah, sure. I like to help out where I can. I think that's often where I tend to fail in the professional aspect because I have really, really bad follow through, and I told myself I didn't want to do that anymore, and I wanted to become a good and reliable person that maybe so many people would want to work with. And I guess that's kind of why I decided to start making this video, because if you are new, and I know I don't have a following at all, but if you go back and look at some of my videos, you may notice that it's a lot of Let's Play stuff, and that's because I wanted to do Let's Plays, and I guess that's kind of what I want to talk about. If you're listening, is what why I started this as a Let's Play channel, and now it's becoming this. Is because I learned more recently than I care to that, like, maybe video games were an escape for me for a lot of problems that I had. And that was fine, but I think as I've gotten older and I've become more accustomed to the language and the nature of video games and how they've almost become robotic to me, I started to realize that it's just an escape. Like, that's all I was using it for. Like, I don't even necessarily know if I love video games anymore. I think I love the feeling that it gave me to be out and away from a situation that I was growing up in. And now that I am where I'm at now and I'm more, emotionally mature, I've started channeling that escape into this, and I've started to kind of dial in, like, where I was mentally when I would play video games as a younger fellow into this. And I will say I don't think it's healthy by any means, but in the current state of the world, especially, since I did have to leave my job, it's the best I can possibly do for myself and the people around me. And it's rough. I feel for people who also deal with, depression and anxiety and all the hard things to talk about. I think even now, as I've been preparing myself in the shower to do this, my voice is a little shaky just saying those words. It's not something that, in my family we ever really talked about. It's not something I started talking about until I was an adult, and I think even now nobody in my family really wants to talk about or acknowledge it. I think, like, learning that I had schizophrenia was a weird moment for my family, because then that's something that we'll unpack one day, I guess. But it's almost like my family was more willing to believe in demons than the power of the human brain. I don't feel like I hold any resentment about that towards the people I talk to, but we can talk about more of that another time. I'm mostly here to just talk about, anxiety. And I really want to talk about anxiety because I've seen some of the strongest people in my life kind of crumble at the wake of the situation going on in the world right now. And if you're not aware, we are in my state, at least, because if you couldn't tell by my general vernacular, I live in the United States. We're supposedly out of the clear. And if you were ever curious about where I was living, it's in one of the 3 worst states that has been affected by the situation. I will say we're not the worst, but we do look like a penis. And that's all y'all need to know. But not that we had a great reputation before everything had happened, but here we are. And I feel like I've had a lot of eye-opening situations and weird things happen. And I think to some, you may talk about, like, eye-opening situations. Like, a lot of people are aware of, the Black Lives Matter movement and everything happening right now. In fact, we're starting to see the aftermath of it, where all lives matter people are starting to come out and make their voices heard. And I do say y'all are fucking cowards for deciding to come out and fight when, the dust has started to clear. But to each their own, you do you, man. And it's like, I don't have enough of a following for me to care about losing anybody. I think even if I did, I'd still feel the same way. Because, if being a decent human being makes you angry, then you're the least of my concerns. But that aside, like all of that aside, I learned a lot about people I think I always knew, but I didn't want to learn, and I know it's progressively become harder and harder to deal with who I'm around and what I'm doing. And I think like it's easier when you don't have the validation that what you're doing is, or how you feel or what you believe in isn't right. But once you do have that validation, you're almost welcome to open your eyes and look at people and be like, no, I don't need you. And there were a lot of there were some people that I think that occurred with in my recent life that I don't even necessarily feel bad about. But it makes it harder to deal with some people who are supposed to be close in your life that you've been dealing with for a long time. And I think there are a lot of people out here nowadays who are starting to deal with that situation, and I feel for you. You see, despite everything that happened in January and onward, this was not anything in the realm of my anxiety that scared me. This was like always a possibility, and it's always something I knew was going to go with the flow. I don't necessarily understand my anxiety, because there are some things I'm very, very anxious about, and there are other things that would never bother me in a million years, and I don't quite know where that line meets. And I never got to unpack that in therapy properly as I was going, and I haven't been to therapy in years, and I've been off medication for it'll be a year in August or October. I think it'll be a year that I've been off medication. I used to take medication for my anxiety and depression. It's really weird when you're on your medication for something like that, because you almost like feel like everything is different, and when you live in a constant state of worry and a constant state of self-hatred and self-doubt, and then you go into that 180 of having none of that, I think it's a very interesting thing to deal with. And that's kind of been my entire life, and now I'm seeing otherwise considerably normal neurotypical people be what I feel like is brought down to my level. And I say that because there is almost like a feeling of the lesser when you're depressed or you're anxious, or like what you have is not a big deal. And I'm not here to minimize or tell people that they are the lesser. I'm here to tell you that that's how it feels when you have those problems, or when you have those situations. I don't even like calling them problems. I'll show you, because I know my hand covers a lot of it, but that's her company name. And I think it's funny that I decided to talk about this on this video. She may not ever see this, and people might not. She may not approve it. I just think it's interesting because she's a very happy person, and she's a very energetic and hyper person. I think that like a lot of people thought they were. And it's weird to get like a sense of validation out of, you know, a new progressive rights movement, and not even new. That's not a new movement. It's been around for a while. It's just now it's taken a bigger spotlight. Is that when you get the validation, it feels empowering, but when people start to feel the way you do, it almost feels like you're being mocked. And it's because when you are settled with general anxiety disorder and people end up with this situational anxiety, I feel like a lot of people I've run into have been like, look at me, look at me, look at me, I have a problem. And it's like, okay, I've had a problem for years. What do you want? I can help you. I can guide you through this and talk you through this. But ultimately, at the end of the day, are you going to help me? And I've come to find the answer as things start to return to a semblance of normalcy is no. I feel like a lot of people ended up, a lot of people who were already broken ended up in situations. I don't even like saying broken. It's kind of a translative thing that a lot of people accept. I think a lot of people who have to live with this situation constantly in their heads are gonna be left behind more than they were. And I like to watch TikTok compilations. And I saw one. This kid probably couldn't have been like more than 16, 17 years old, but talking about how you just need to ignore those voices in your head. And it's like, motherfucker, I know, bro. Like, I'm aware I need to ignore those voices in my head, but they sleep in my bed. They're in every waking moment of my life. They're there telling me that I'm not good enough and that I'm never going to be good enough, and why bother trying because nobody's ever going to care. And when you live with that forever, since I can really remember having thought, maybe before I was like 10 years old, yeah, you can ignore it, but it doesn't go away. I'm glad that people can get over those things and that people aren't incubated into situations that allow them to move on from it. But now, my coping mechanism at the time was always video games. I don't really play video games as heavily or as seriously as I used to. I was never a pro. I think the best I ever got at a game was Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And I was one of the top ranked people in the world, but I also didn't have a job. And I was like 19. How old was I when that came out? 2012. I was like 20 years old. I didn't have a job for like an entire year. All I did was sit at home and play Call of Duty. So yeah, I got fucking good at it. But I'm not good at video games per se. I'm good at one particular game that gets phased out every year. And then Call of Duty Ghosts came out, and I was really bad at that. And I think everybody didn't like that game. So I felt a little vindicated in that aspect. But I don't even play those kind of games anymore. Not even because I'm not good at them, just because they bore me. And it's almost like as I've gotten older, my attention span has made it harder to deal with things. Now, don't get me wrong. Chaboy plays a lot of video games. Let me tell you, I do still play a lot. I'm playing Mario Odyssey right now. I've been playing Mario Odyssey since 2017 or whenever it came out, because it came with my Switch, and I got a day one Switch. And I don't want to say that I've beaten it yet, because I haven't. I just started playing it. And really getting into it because, you know, due to not being able to go outside and do anything, and having some immuno issues and having family with some immuno issues, we ended up playing a lot. And I feel bad because I used to play New Leaf religiously on my 3DS, and I feel like I got all the playtime of New Leaf in a couple months. And it's a game I've been waiting for coming out for years. Um, and you know what? On the note of anxiety, props to Nintendo and all of them for releasing that game early, and I was really appreciative of that. And I got to get people who have never played it before into it, who really enjoy it. I think that some of these people are a little demanding of the game in ways that like they think they can make it better, and they're not wrong, but it's just like, if you've been a long time Animal Crossing fan, you just learn to deal with it because the game is a gem on its own. Like, and we're kind of, as somebody who's worked with, developing video games, it's a process that is not always in your control, and you don't always get to decide what's what. Um, but yeah, I guess we'll get off that trail and go right back to the original subject. Um, Sorry. So I realize that there's a lot of anxiety out there right now over people who aren't sure about work and aren't sure about what's going to happen in the future. And I mean, kind of welcome to life, my man. We kind of have a blueprint for what's going to happen, but we don't ever really know what's going to happen. And that's something that, despite your anxieties about life, you just gotta kind of learn to live with. I think a lot about how in the last couple of years I've lost quite a few friends, and I mean that in the mortal sense, not just like, oh, people don't talk to me anymore. Because like, let me tell you, if you're young enough and you think your friends are forever, you are mistaken. You're gonna lose a lot of those friends as you get older, and that's a tough pill to swallow. But it is what it is. And I've lost quite a few friends, and at the very beginning of the year, I lost my grandfather, and it's just kind of what I mean. You don't know what's gonna happen, and I guess a grandfather is a little more predictable than, say, a 27-year-old friend. But it still hurts, and that's kind of where my anxiety draws in, is that like I live in that perpetual thought of, I never know what's gonna happen, so I gotta roll with the punches, and some days are better than others, and that's okay. There doesn't have to be any major foreign explanation for the situation. There doesn't have to be like some grandiose resolve to all of it. It's just, a day is a day, and we're here to move forward when we can. And I'm never gonna tout about resources to help you, but I do say that if they are available to you and you are comfortable using them, please do. I personally have several, hotlines and texting services available to me at all times. I've never I've never used any of them because I have a hard time talking on the phone, and I have a hard time talking about what's wrong. And I wish there was a pen pal letter service sometimes, because that's much easier for me to pen pal my situation to everybody. That's how, you know, me and my partner, um, like, communicate most of the time, is through that. And not pen pals, but writing. I know texting can be like writing, but I'm a really awkward texter. I feel like it's. I will say though that despite who you are, what you're going through, and what you're doing, if you're anxious and you have anxieties, you are valid in every aspect, especially now, especially if you're in a group that is like considered the minority, if you are in a group that is considered different, or that is considered the not situation that everyone, I guess, if you're kind of the other. And I think in the current state of everything going on right now, the other is more prominent in people than basically, if you're calling anybody the other, you're probably the problem. Um, I I am part of the other. I don't. I I can't say I struggle the same as most presenting people, because I don't. I present as somebody who is not like that at all in any aspect or term. Like, when at the end of the day, when you see this, uh, I'm I'm just a straight up, in the way I sound, I'm just a straight up cishet white dude. But you know, looks can be deceiving, I suppose. And I feel for all those people right now who are very anxious about the current state of things, because we almost have an infighting going on, where if you're not with us, you're with them, and if you are with them, you don't deserve to have a voice or be a person. And I will say that if you've switched sides into the belief system of the people who are oppressed, and of people who are having trouble getting their voices heard, welcome to the club. Welcome to what it was like, dealing with your situation for a long time, and welcome to the frustration and the struggle that nobody wanted to listen to, and the arrogance and ignorance. And also, good for you. Good for you for taking the side that seems right, and the side that is going to help you feel better in the long run. But remember that even though you do a good thing, and you pick a side that's okay, it's not about you, and it's not about me. It's about a much bigger situation, where I think you should definitely learn to listen more than talk, because if you were ever affiliated with our other, then I guess you really at one point only knew how to talk. And sometimes being quiet and listening is hard. And I feel for your anxieties, because you kind of see what people have been fighting for, and what some people have died for, and what some people recently have died for, and people are getting hurt and arrested for. And you just start to kind of see the flaws in the entire old belief system because, we've had our eyes opened to some of the atrocities firsthand with no way to detach from it, because you can watch all your movies and read all your books, but once you're bored, you're fucking bored, man. And I think it's kind of sad that, like, that had to be the product of a lot of people's boredoms, but, better now than never, I suppose. This is one design I'm gonna capture on video and talk about. I don't know if I'm going to do much for the other things because I've kind of talked about everything I felt like I wanted to talk about today. I just burped into the microphone. The joys of no editing. I would have normally, I guess I could talk about the piece bit now that we've kind of gotten that out of the way. and I might do this as like a once a week little series where I upload things talking about the state of the world and mental health and stuff like that, because I think it's important to start talking about everything going on. And I'm very late to the game, but I don't ever feel like I necessarily had a great camera to do that. And I'm also realizing I probably lost half the drawing from my hand position because I'm not paying attention to the screen, damn it. But yeah, this I normally would not be this meticulous with like anything that kind of resembles graffiti. Graffiti is supposed to be fast. Graffiti is supposed to be like a done, get away quick. Unless you're only used to seeing mural and approved pieces, but if you've ever like seen tags or seen things that weren't approved, and you usually catch them on trains and stuff like that, especially if you live in a metro area. Like I took the train to San Francisco a couple times when I lived in California. You would see some of the most beautiful graffiti there, and I started to get exposure to graffiti when I was 14, due to a teacher of mine who taught us about graffiti in the class. It was an art class. It was the it was the first art class I had ever taken, and I was my freshman year of high school. And to be honest with you, it's the only class where I think I learned anything, because most classes were basically just teaching you the same shit over and over and over again, no matter what level you were at. And that's pretty annoying. Even in college, when I took one art class, I was like, this is just the same shit. But I got a fucking B. I got a B in my art class in college. And there were people who were doing significantly worse, coasting it to get their, college admissions thing because they wanted to go to universities and stuff like that. And they got A's, and half the time they didn't try. And I found out, like, I think the teacher just really was aware of the skill level I was working at and was grading me a bit harsher, but like, save that for drawing too. Damn, man, you fucked up my GPA with that. Like, I was in the animation program, and I needed, by the time I left my college, because I'd just given up and there was a lot of stuff going on in my life and I had to come back home, you needed like a 4.9 GPA to go to the university for the program that you wanted. And I was like, what the fuck? I had to take remedial math because I was out of high school for 5 years. So I already had the cards stacked against me. But back on the graffiti, sorry. Um yeah, it's very quick, and you often don't do graffiti in the way that you would do, like, ugh, my arm is, I don't know if I can show you. My arm from my drawing table is getting a bruise because I have like a notch right here. I need to just, I got a wide angle lens and I'm just not anywhere near the drawing zone, so sorry. I hope you like to fall asleep to a 40-minute video of me and not watch a single thing. But yeah, I'm not gonna ink this yet because this is only the second draft. If you want to see the designs I presented, I brought this one forward, and this is based off of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And it's cool. It's kind of, she said it was kind of her vibe, or I guess it was her vibe, and I'm pretty good at translating it back down to here. I know there's some differences, but it essentially looks the same. And then I have this one, which was a warm up I did on stream yesterday. And I just had fun with that. I'm gonna have a harder time translating that into a smaller thing, and I'll explain why I started to draw on this instead. I'm a thirsty bitch. I'm very thirsty. But and it's funny because I'm listening to Super Lonely because I just have music playing in my headphones while I'm talking. You know, that thing you want to be listening to under my voice, but no, you're not getting that because that's editing I don't feel like doing. But yeah, so the reason I'm using on this is because this can actually be cut into an aspect ratio that can be used for uploading, but it's also just a fine aspect ratio for how it's uploaded now. And these are 3x5 ruled index cards, which I highly recommend if you do draw a lot to get these. Draw on a smaller scale. I mostly got them when I was in animation for storyboarding. And yeah, I use these a lot when I'm doing storyboards or when I'm trying to get down a story, or sometimes I'll just grab one and do little doodles on them and get rid of them. They're cute, they're fun, and they're cheap. Oh, sorry, I'm so gassy. I had ice cream yesterday. Chaboy is lactose intolerant. Can't hold me down though. So this is another design I did, and as you can see, I took a lot of little notes around here as to what I would fix, because I ultimately used this tool to make a lot of these letters. As you will see, the circular will fit there just fine, and they'll all fit like that because I wanted to get an idea of like if I could use consistent shapes through it. And this ended up just being a warm-up and me practicing using a new tool. This is not an art tool at all. This is a spaghetti measurer. Hold on. Let me see if I can get that into proper light. Spaghetti measurer. And I walked into a Target in Ohio. I'm not from, nor do I live in Ohio, but I was at a Target in Ohio. Mind your business. And I looked at that and was like, hey, I could use that as a drawing tool. And so I got it, and it cost $3, and it works really well. Because before that, I was using bottle caps and bottles and other things to make circles. This is kind of a Westerner design, and I'm thinking about using this S for something for her, because she said she really liked the S, and I don't necessarily think she cared for the rest of it, which is fine. It's not her style, but I have a secret for her that I have not talked to anybody but one person yet, which is my partner. And then there's this one, which is what which is my style. Um, this is a style I've been using since I was very young, since I first learned about graffiti. I always thought it was like ugly or basic or something like that because it's something that I did, and a lot of people seem to like it. I don't know. But she really liked that one. And I did other preliminary sketches, and I'll do this one on video too, on a separate video. I'm doing all of these today, but I'm just gonna do this one for this video. I'll have 2 videos to come out in the next couple weeks. And then there's this one, which was rejections. These were ones where I had kind of honed into an idea and went with it. She didn't really like any of these, and that's fine. I do like these a lot, though. I guess it's because they're so different for me, and there were definitely things I could fix on them that I would love to fix. For the most part, though, these are the designs I came up with, and some people might be like, ooh, you're using lined paper. Well, yeah, I am. Suck my dick. Like, I don't care. I like to sketch on lined paper because then it reminds me that, like, I actually have no commitment to this situation. Like, this can be whatever it wants. And now, don't get me wrong, if I had a professional clientele who was like, make me some mock-ups, I'd be like, I wouldn't be like, yo, homie, here's your rough drafts on lined paper. I'd be like, oh, yeah, yes, sir, I will get them, on Photoshop, like a professional. That's not true. You don't need Photoshop to be a professional. It's highly recommended because it is like a massively powerful tool for that situation. But if you don't feel comfortable with it, man, just hone what you want to do. Because that's what I've been doing. And although it has gotten me literally nowhere, I'm much happier doing it than frustrated. And I do know Photoshop. I know how to use Photoshop. I just hate using Photoshop. And I may or may not have lost my drawing tablet. That's not true. I know where my drawing tablet is. I lost the cords for it. So, what I'm thinking about doing with this is that I'm gonna have to make a background for this, and I never really thought that far ahead, which is fine because this is a draft. And with drafts, you don't have to think that far ahead, and you can just kind of experiment and be like, hey, do you like this concept? And if they're like, no, it's like, okay, well, that adds another day to my project, I guess. Because it's okay to take breaks in creativity. Not long breaks. Don't be like, well, I drew 2 lines, now it's time to take a whole day off. Don't do that. I mean, like, if you've been working for 4 to 8 hours on one thing, move on. Like, go do something else for a little while, or just go play a video game or something. Like, take a break. Give your mind a break. Because your work is just gonna get less and less favorable as time goes on. Nice. And remember, erasers exist for a reason, so if you fuck up, it's fine. Like, keep going. Try not to erase a lot. Like, try to erase for design or to fix things. And, like, the only reason I'm erasing a lot right now is because, like, I've already kind of established, like, these ones had no eraser. The only eraser that, like, I had with my rough drafts were, I don't even think I had an eraser in this one. Some of the rough drafts I did had erasing marks in them, because I had to kind of make some clarity on the letters. But for the most part, like, until you reach your second, third, or final stages, or second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth final stages don't have to be dictated by what you're doing. Or they have to be dictated by what you're doing, I guess is a better way to put it. You can't say every drawing is finished in 4 stages. Like, it can be 4 stages, but you get stuck in phases in those stages, but then at that point you're just complicating the chart in your head. So don't do that. Unless you want to, unless that's your thing, then like fucking do it. But I think if you're new to the concept of drawing professionally, don't do that, because I think that's what killed a lot of my career opportunities early on, is that I wouldn't sectionalize my work properly. And so now that I've kind of got this established background, which is just a basic circle, I I really want to transfer this thing to like a watercolor paper and do it, but I would tell her at this point that like this circle section back here is she can't really pick up the circle. I need to turn down my exposure on my camera a bit. But I basically tell her like, here's my idea. Like, I want to keep all this white and black, but I want to keep the inside here, like make it tie dye, because that's what her company is it's a tie dye shirt company. And once again, highly recommend looking it up. She makes some, dope shit. I'm such an asshole. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm gonna kind of just do some outer line stuff, which, why not go wild with it, because all this stuff can be removed later if you really want it to. A lot of times what you'll do is you'll make these, especially in graffiti, is you'll make these kind of outer lines, especially if you're like tagging over something that already exists, which is called something else, but I don't do that, never have, never will. It's highly disrespectful. And I'm not here to teach kids about the politics of spray painting right now. So the point is, though, is that of doing this kind of outlining thing is it makes it not only like a sticker, which for her, if she ever wanted to delve into selling stickers, which can be profitable, she can transfer this design to stickers. But if she doesn't want it, it's good as a standalone design. But what we'll do is start going around like this and drawing this kind of like, I'm guessing that's like 1/8 of an inch outline, or half. No, that's definitely not half an inch. It's somewhere in that realm. But you'll kind of make this border around it, and sometimes the border can cut in, sometimes it can stay really loosey-goosey. It's fine. The point of the border is you can start far away, but just remember you're going to be in the constraints of it soon. So get within kind of an eyeball distance of it. And just really outline everything, make everything its own little piece, and then I'll show you where we usually go from here, or where I would go from here, because I have to mix a bit of myself in this drawing. Oh darn, I realize I have lost my camera. Oh, you've probably missed all of that. The camera's gonna cut out for like half a second off this blank screen. I'm so sorry. There goes the blank. Hi, we're back again. I'm so sorry about that, but if you notice, I've made this border around it. This whole situation is wild. I just woke up and decided to do this today, so I'm so sorry. There is no planning or thought. This is gonna be its own thing, but I'm having fun. I feel like it's nice that I'm getting to talk about what's kind of going on in my head, even if nobody's gonna listen to it. But yeah, you can kind of see what I was talking about, though, before my camera cut out, where I've created a lot of these lines going around. And then you're going to create another smaller line. And you don't even have to make the line. You can just build up to a solid line if you're more comfortable. Sometimes on long stretches, I'll do that. And for these shorter ones, I'll be like, oh, I can make an interesting line. But you have to keep it all in the same realm. So if you notice, I have all these letters that are kind of this 90s graffiti thing going on. And then, as with the sticker border I'm making, I kind of keep it followed through that. Like, you got to keep it very simple, and if it's more complicated, it's more complicated. But you really want to keep your border as simple and readable as possible. This is about all I'm gonna do with this border. When we go into this design, which is my style, we're gonna get a little more crazy with it. But I want her to walk away with a design that she can, profit off of. And the profit here is going to come in our predetermined payment and experience, which when you do logo design and you make logos for people, they're going to end up like getting your name out there more than their name, as long as people are seeing it. Because if somebody looks at a logo and thinks, oh, that's really tight, like, they're going to ask about it, especially if you're working with a smaller business. Because if you're making logos for a big business, you don't have to worry about proving yourself anymore. You're good. You're solid. You've got a job. It's like the Arizona tea woman who's basically set for life because she designed all the Arizona tea labels. Like, yeah, you're good. You don't got to prove yourself anymore. It's funny because she still has a portfolio. And if you've never seen her portfolio, please go look at it. It's great because you literally just open it and it's all wraps of Arizona tea. And she's done other work, but like, what do you do at that point? Like, you have one of the most well-branded things in the country. What you gonna do? And sometimes you do end up working with a team on these things, so you don't always have to be the sole creative drive in a situation. And it's kind of some advice I want to give to maybe any people younger or thinking about trying to do work. Collaborate and accept that you're not the best, accept that you are wrong, accept that your ideas are bad. It will hurt, but you'll get used to it. Because I think one thing that I've heard other people talk about is like, you got to develop thick skin to work in this industry. And it's like, yeah, but how do you develop thick skin? And it's, first you have to look in yourself, and then, you have to learn to look at others and go, you're right, what I've done is wrong. And I do want you to know, though, that if you are good and what you're doing is good and you are the best at what you do, you'll never have to defend it. You may have to, argue it, but maybe keep yourself open to those ideas. But overall, you don't have to defend it, because you'll have people who can see things differently. Most recently, and I think I'm gonna end on this story and end the video here, because I'm kind of happy with this rough draft, and I'll continue it after I've gotten the other one done. I'm just gonna do those two though on video, and next time we'll talk about other things. I'm gonna record these back to back, so I might be a little burnt out. But it's like, I went to the Dali Museum in St. Petersburg, and I was reading one of the plaques, because Salvador Dali is one of my favorite artists ever, and I've always wanted to go to the Salvador Dali Museum, and I was very excited. And in one of his plaques, it states that when he went to college, he was he refused to let any of the judges or peers judge his work because he knew he was better than them. And I think that says a lot about how well you know yourself, because Dali created a movement completely separate of what he started out doing. And that's highly respectable. If someone who knows how well they're doing to say, no, you can't judge me. Because when art critics and artwork is judged, they're judged by, preconceived ideas of what a piece of art should or will look like. And he basically said, you can't comprehend what I'm making, so therefore you cannot judge me. And that was a fair assumption for him, because he became one of the most wealthy, popular artists of his time. And even now, today, we look at his works and look at his just general being as a human. And go watch interviews with him. He was very unapologetically himself in everything he did. And he was very extra. And I think you run back to the idea of what I started talking about in the beginning of this video, which is anxiety. And anxiety makes it very hard for you to be who you are, and it makes it very hard for you to speak up. But when you can speak up, and when you can defend yourself, you also kind of learn to listen and hear the people who are hurting and hear the people who are anxious. And you've given yourself the ability to look at them and say everything's gonna be okay. So if you're anxious out there, I can't tell you everything's gonna be okay. But I can tell you everything gets worse before it gets better. And everything will eventually get better. And if better is okay for you, then that's good enough. So I hope you enjoyed me making my first symbol, my first sticker. Once again, I am an artist from Florida. I'll be uploading these probably once a week, unedited, just these little talks, and maybe sometime I'll have my partner come on and she'll talk too, or maybe she'll talk and ask questions while I'm drawing, and I think it'll be fun. But look out for more content, because I am going to be funneling my creativity into weird projects. And it's hard for me to say that I'm a creative type, but I have a hunger and a thirst for making and creating now that I don't feel like I've ever had before. So I hope I can stick to it, and I hope the world doesn't get to me like it did before. And I suppose, as Bob Ross would say, even though I am not religious, God bless, and have a good day.